Welcome back, guys. This is episode 61, and it's What's Really Going On. And before I get to our special guest today, be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. You all know the drill, WRGOPOD. And subscribe to us on YouTube at What's Really Going On. Listen, like, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. Like every single platform, we're on there. But anyways, I'll let Noah take it away.
So this special guest was on for our very first live show that we did. I think it was September 2019. That feels like forever.
We love to pop up during CBC season.
Yeah, it feels like forever ago, but we are joined by the amazing Maya King, a reporting fellow at Politico, the proper person who we can have during this crazy ambiguous time. So I guess, Maya, we could just kind of get right into it. I mean, with the presidential election still undecided, what's kind of been your biggest takeaway from the returns or lack thereof, since it's day 3 and we still don't know anything yet?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back, guys. I can't believe it's been over a year since I've joined you. It feels like forever ago and yet not very long. I'm actually a politics reporter now at Politico. I was a fellow the last time we talked.
We love moves. We love moves.
So I'm still with them, just in a different position. But the things that I'm monitoring now, I'm still covering race and demographics, and still looking at how different groups have voted and behaved. And 2 things that we know for sure: if this is a Biden win, Black voters will have been the groups that put the former vice president over the top. So it's not just 1 or 2 states; it's a handful of major cities and metropolitan areas that have flipped blue. And these cities have really large Black populations. So Milwaukee and Wisconsin, Detroit and Michigan, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, Atlanta and Georgia, if Georgia does indeed flip blue, which is looking more and more like a real thing. Yeah. So that's one major trend that I've been following and reporting on. And another thing that I've been looking at has been really the consistency of white voters. I think going into this election, a lot of the polls, which we know were kind of off now, but going in showed us that this might be a situation where Trump loses because the white voters that made up his base, like white women, college-aged white voters, white seniors, would move further away from him. But what we see right now with the returns, which of course exit polls really have to be taken with a grain of salt. So I'm trying not to like perpetuate or like add too much weight to them, but I think they do kind of help inform the direction that we're headed. And white voters from those have really stuck with the president. Like women actually, within the margin of error, have seen a little bit of growth right now. White Republicans, of course, have held the line with the president as well. And in places like Florida, which is home to a large population of white seniors, there was some movement away from President Trump, but not a lot, and certainly not enough to deliver Biden a win in Florida. So those are the trends that I'm really looking at right now, and I'm sure as things continue to unfold and given the events of tonight devolve, we all have more to say.
Right.
Go ahead, Henry.
I was gonna say, cause like I've been in and out. I'm just saying like that. And with that being the case, I'll tune in at certain points. And I was listening to where, and that's what I want to ask, because you said, if I heard you correctly or understood it correctly at least, like white voters have been voting a little different. And I know on MSNBC they were saying like it was I can't remember the guy's name, but he was essentially saying like, America, the people, the powers that may be, whomever, like to like assert claims like the Black people didn't vote as much or whatever. But like he said he noticed like white people, they're voting but in favor of Trump. So it's like it's a question to me of like division and where do we stand as a country in these people. And I guess I don't know if I understood correctly or something, but I guess curious to see, go deeper into that. Cause like I know in 2016, white women carried Trump. So like I kind of want to explore that.
Well, you know, it's true that we are a deeply divided country, and I think more so than we thought. And the results of this election, with nearly 70 million voters that have voted for Trump, shows us just how divided we are. So, you know, I think these next 24 to 48 hours are really going to be pivotal in seeing how people act on those divisions. That's really the conversation that we're having now, especially after the president's address. This is a really timely podcast. I mean, just an hour ago, the president spoke from, hold on. Sorry, guys. The president spoke from you know, the Oval Office, and used the power of the presidency to try to delegitimize perfectly legitimate votes. And again, you know, a large
right?
It's the second time, exactly. And so a large portion of the 70 million people who voted for Trump listen to what he says, believe that it's true, and are willing to act on it. So this is really a pivotal time. I mean, it's not like he's not doing anything that he said he was going to do. And, you know, I think we're just looking at a really tense situation of just how the division in this country could also bring it to its knees.
Right. Cause Mackenzie, you can go out of this, but like, I just want to say this real quick. I was on Twitter and yesterday or sometime, and it was some news station in Virginia, and they were talking to this Trump supporter who is in his like force, like literally training his son how to shoot a gun, and he was like, well, yeah, if he gets on, it's gonna be a prop. I'm like, what the? Like, he basically about to say, I'm about to go out here and, you know what I'm saying? Now, that would have been me or my homeboy down the street. We would have been like, you know what I'm saying? That video would have, you know, hey, police, sir. So to me, that's crazy, man.
That's crazy. I mean, that's why progressives were saying, or I won't say progressives, but, you know, activists and folks who were familiar with the situation were telling people, prepare for a scenario in which you might need to be in the house for a week or two. Mm-hmm. And again, this looks very clearly like a Biden win, but the fallout from that is just really going to be something that could potentially become a dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. And it's all rooted in the racial hypocrisy, I think, of this country. Mm-hmm. And the fact that this president has really played to white grievance politics. And of course, Biden has taken the position of healing and reuniting the country. But at this point, given what I've reported, who I've talked to, and just what I've seen, and then pairing that with my own experience as a Black American, it is very difficult for me to see what reuniting this country post-Trump, what that's really going to look like, and whether that's something that can even be accomplished in 4 years under what is, you know, ostensibly a really moderate Democratic ticket.
Speaking of uniting the country, you wrote about Democrats pushing Black men and trying to engage Black men, but Biden didn't really perform well with Black men. What do you think about that? Like, I do think that there's something missing with Black men, or they're missing something, and I just want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, you know, Biden still got over 80% of the Black male vote. Mm-hmm. Trump's goal was to try to shave off 20% of Black men, and they got pretty close. But by and large, Black men still voted for the Democratic ticket. And that's a sign that Trump's talking points about the crime bill and Biden's role in that, about his own accomplishments via the First Step Act of criminal justice, and I mean, trying to employ people like, or deploy, I guess, people like Ice Cube and Lil Wayne and others, like maybe had an impact, especially among younger Black men. But overall, like, it's still a resounding victory for Biden with Black men now, compared to the like 90, I think we're at 91, 92% of Black women who voted for Democrats and have consistently voted for Democrats and never, swayed away. I think it's true to say that Democrats do have a challenge in their outreach to Black men. But they really pulled out all of the stops. I would actually be curious to hear from the Black men on this panel how you feel about Democrats' outreach to Black men, because I've been following those developments now for over a year. And it seems like all I was seeing was lots and lots of Black male surrogates for Democrats, like flying to places like Milwaukee or Columbia, South Carolina, or Chicago, or Oakland, or Atlanta, like really Black cities, and then going to a handful of barbershops there, sitting down with like whoever they've chosen to sit down with, or whoever happens to be in the barbershop, and then like talking about the issues and figuring out how they refine their messaging. Like, I don't know if that's a winning strategy or not.
I don't think it is. I mean, I think that, you're someone who covers campaigns.
Why, though, because you said a lot of stuff I wouldn't comment on, but I've been talking a lot, so no, go ahead.
No, I think you cover campaigns, Maya, so I think that kind of strategy is only kind of reserved for Blacks and Latinos. Like, white voters in suburban areas and rural areas don't get that kind of touch. That's kind of just very canned. It's very, we're going to do this type of media, we're going to do these type of input, we're going to release these types of policies that are specific. I think that it's a problem that I think Biden had, also that I think Democrats in general have, and then I think that they reach out to us in the ways they think we want to. And I think that, you talk to campaign people, not a lot of Black people are making the decisions of where candidates go and how they speak and what they do. And I think sometimes that can show. So I just think that it's oftentimes very stereotypical of, oh, you go to the barbershop when it's like, it's COVID, so I'm not at the barbershop. So how else are you trying to reach me on a logistical way?
But to that point though, there was that clip of Kamala doing the sneaker whatever, and people hated her for that. So it's
I think that was a problem too.
What are the solutions? Hold on, Henry. Where can they meet you? Because it's like, if they do too much, then they come off corny, and then it's like,
that's exactly what I was about to say.
But what are the solutions?
Maya pointed out a great point for me, at least, because I have this friend who likes to say Biden is just as bad as Trump, which I don't understand, but that's another story for another day. Point is, I think Trump, he wanted to hit young voters, like young Black voters, and he very much did that. To like Mackenzie's point, it's like we live in this generation of people who like they it's like you're on my side how I want you to be, or you're just against me, right? And when we analyze like Black males across the board, like they're less educated than Black women. So when you think about like critically analyzing how these people are affecting your daily lives, they might not be doing that, right? So they're like, they hear trigger words, trigger things. Oh, he passed the most the police reform. Okay, let's analyze that. His attorney general stopping half of that from happening, right? So if you're just hearing trigger words, you're gonna run off of that. And like, if you are voting, because most Black young men don't vote, then
But even then, Henry, I want to stop you there, because that's not even true either.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Black men don't feel compelled to vote. But
right.
if you look at the data,
we're voting
compared to other ethnic groups,
right there.
I don't know about any other, but a majority Black voters across ages, genders, and across demographics have higher turnout rates than almost any other group.
I'm not saying that at all. I am saying like the Black male vote tends to be down or trend toward him from what I've observed.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Let me clarify. I think we Black people overwhelmingly vote. Like, I'm not saying we don't. I'm saying Black males, especially younger Black males, it seems like if they are voting now, it seems they tend go his way or like have a defense as to why Biden is X, Y, and Z. And like for me, I guess I've analyzed or received, like I've seen his record and he's tried. You know, he's not perfect. Nobody is perfect. They're politicians at the end of the day. But like I can see how like when Trump is baiting him on the stage and he's avoiding using certain triggering language that, you know, directly speaks to, you know, angsting up a certain group of people.
Maya,
And
I know
think,
this. No, I was gonna say, I know this question is kind of like often said, and I don't want to ask it in the traditional way, but do you think that the Biden campaign made a genuine attempt to not have such a dip? Because it doesn't seem like, to me as a black male, I don't think that the Biden campaign, they had kind of moments, but I don't think that they did anything specifically targeting, you know, you can even say black men, you can even say kind of black people in general. And I think that, do you think that the campaign was just kind of like, we'll get it and it'll come, but let's focus, and like the next question we have kind of gets at this, but do you think they were just kind of like, it'll come and let's go figure out something else?
So what I know is that in 2016, a large number, larger than several previous elections, of Black male voters either stayed home, voted third party, which hurt Hillary Clinton, or voted for Donald Trump. And Democrats saw that pattern, knew that 2020 was going to be a close race that came down to the margins, and did what they could to go after the Black male vote and shore up Black enthusiasm for the nominee. They hired up a bunch of Black operatives at the DNC.
Yeah, they did.
When you call them Black operators, is so funny.
That's what they are.
That's what they are. They're just, yeah.
That's what they are.
Secret Black weapon.
I mean, and that's exactly what they were, though, right? Because they knew and they listened to them. They're like our age. And the Biden campaign also has a really strong showing of young Black press secretaries and staffers. And they listened to them, tried to kind of modernize their approach. But it's so interesting to hear you and Noah and Henry say that they didn't do anything. That means it didn't reach everyone. That's what that means.
And that's me and Mackenzie's favorite line. They're not doing enough because because that's what I said. I wouldn't even Noah's question, because he said that they didn't try at all. I think they acknowledged Black people, knowing that Black women overwhelmingly supported the Democrat Party. But I don't think that they directly tried to engage with Black men. So
Henry, I'll actually rephrase what I said. I think the Trump campaign probably did do what you should have done. They went on stuff like Kamala did go on Complex Sneakers, and Biden did go on Desus and Mero. He did do the typical kind of hits that you would want someone who tries to be exposed to young Black men. I think that at a certain point, maybe this is coming from my privilege as someone who went to college and who has a certain amount of status. This is my privilege in this. But I think that at a certain point, they don't take me as someone who understands substance. And that at a certain point, I need to
thank you.
Okay, I have thoughts on that, because that was one thing I was hoping I got at in my Black male outreach story, but didn't have a chance to really lay out, which is that really both parties have an issue with their Black outreach. Mm-hmm. So Black women see voting for Democrats as a survival vote. It's no question that we're going to vote for Democrats because we're like, obviously this is the best option. Black men tend to be like, what is in it for me though? What do you have for me specifically? But the problem though, there's nothing wrong with that either. No, but Democrats and Republicans really seem to couch their outreach to Black voters in criminal justice, in culture, and in things like appearance or economic revitalization, Black business. I mean, there is, of course, HBCU outreach. There are a handful of policies for housing and for healthcare that really speak to, are very clear examples of Democrats listening to what Black voters are saying. But there's not a lot I'm not seeing a lot of commitment to real solid policy outside of mass incarceration. I mean, that's like one thing that Black voters really care about, but Black men also really care about jobs. Black men really care about education. And I feel like they're trying to say that, but all they're being met with, all Black voters were met with on the campaign trail by and large were barbershop talks, HBCU rallies, small listening sessions for policy, and to make sure that, you know, there was proof of them listening and doing the outreach. But I think you're right. I mean, if you both are saying you don't feel like you were talked to or reached out to, or that there wasn't a message for you, I mean, I think that's kind of one example, and even in the face of you acknowledging your privilege.
And the funny thing is, like, this is like for me, for Mackenzie, like, I think as like the Black woman of our crew, like, I think, do you feel that way? Because I think that, you know,
do I feel like they were talking to Black women?
Yeah, because I think that they often try to do like the mothers of the movement and have mothers who are, you know, the mothers who are people who are killed by police violence. Mackenzie, you don't have kids, so like
yeah, I know
you have all of these other concerns. Do you think that they were addressed, like transportation, education, housing affordability, all these other
that
things?
Roe versus Wade that people keep trying to attack?
Like,
no,
do you think?
I mean, I'll say this. So for Biden, when he was by himself, I mean, I didn't have high expectations for, you know, and I hate to sound like that, but like, it's an older white man. I really didn't have expectations other than, you know, the standard, like, student loans and healthcare and stuff like that. But with Kamala, I don't know if I feel like she specifically spoke to me, but I think her presence kind of might have just been able to, like, we don't have to like address this head on. Like, she never, one thing with me though that I was super like impressed with Elizabeth Biden, she, like, before everything started happening and stuff, she had talked about, you know, Black women giving birth, and I don't remember Kamala mentioning that. So that was an alarm for me that Warren had my attention. So even now, I don't know if Kamala's talked about anything like that.
But we talked about that early, like, she's doing something that affects Black women that no one else is talking about.
Yeah, so I don't know if Kamala did that, and if she did, then I missed that. But I do feel like there wasn't a necessary push for her to directly come at Black women, because I feel like her presence and, like, I'm a Black woman, so y'all should already know I'm for y'all, you know? So that's my take.
It's very interesting to hear you say that, Mackenzie, because you're a young Black woman too. So that's already a different demographic. And hearing you ask if we feel like we're spoken to, my first response is, as a Black woman voter, it's already assumed that I'm going to vote. It's already assumed that, and it's automatically assumed that I'm going to vote Democratic. So frankly, it doesn't matter if I feel spoken to or not. Yeah. And I know that the Democrats really had to straddle that line between representation and built-in support, because what they also know, though, is that Black women are so powerful, not only because they vote at large numbers, but they galvanize their communities and their families to vote. Yeah. And so putting Harris at the top of the ticket was representation. That was super important, which Mackenzie, you confirmed, and it was enthusiasm. As a senator, you know, Senator Harris has acknowledged the health challenges facing Black women. She tried to get a bill through the Senate on fibroid cancer, which is something that disproportionately impacts Black women as a result of underdiagnosis. She's done a couple of other bills. She was one of the first senators to take a meeting with Black Lives Matter and set up a meeting between the Movement for Black Lives and the Congressional Black Caucus. We know that, I mean, we have to take that with a grain of salt, because no one in the CBC was ever going to give Black Lives Matter a serious policy platform, and they're definitely not now, which is another conversation. But I think you know, it almost is like inconsequential. I mean, it was consequential. Representation matters, but it was also very much a dance, I think, for Democrats between, you know, ginning up Black enthusiasm, working with Black voters and their Black staffers, and also making sure that they were winning the people they needed at the margins.
Yeah. Speaking of that,
mainly Black men.
Speaking of that, I think one thing that I think that has like not bothered me a lot, but I think that's kind of grinded my gears about the Biden campaign. I think now it's coming to fruition. And you mentioned it earlier. The Biden campaign made a really targeted decision to go after moderate Republicans and air quotes and suburban voters, some of which they got, but the margin that they thought they would get is definitely probably not where they expected. I think when I saw like exit poll, like you said, taken with a grain of salt, it was white voters were 56 to 42 in favor of Trump, which is not far from Trump's 2016 number. Do you think the Biden campaign put too much faith in appearing to these voters or appealing to white voters on decency, assuming that they would support him? Because I think my biggest issue is you're appealing to people on this idea that they just don't believe. Go ahead, Henry.
You gonna make me
because it's like, for me, I feel like like you just said, like I feel like these, and I think me and Mackenzie know always talk about this, how Democrats try to they still try to be like this white apologist almost, to where they try to appeal to these people that do not, they're not supporting you. They don't care about your party X, Y, Z. We clearly know that your base is black and minority sometimes. You might have a few of them, but majority, nah. So it's like, for us, I think this is what Noah asking, is how is the DNC or the Democratic Party going to start taking the black vote serious, as if it's not just a guaranteed thing?
Y'all are about to make me take off my journalist hat and put on my Howard hat.
We call what's really going on. You know what I'm saying? What's happening?
And y'all tackle it. Y'all about to make me put on my my Dr. Carr political science analyst hat, because I think that's exactly it. I mean, okay, let's just start with Stacey Abrams' 2018 strategy that is literally the reason why Democrats are winning the White House right now. Yeah. Because she said in 2018, we need to stop going after white moderates and start actually going after the voters who haven't voted because their vote has either been suppressed or it's been suppressed by virtue of them just being apathetic about the entire system and not wanting to vote at all. Which really is kind of, I think we can make the argument that in itself, voter apathy as a result of diminishing returns to black voters, is a form of soft voter suppression. Anyways, and so, I mean, and that's winning Democrats. That is currently what is closing the gap between Biden and Trump in Georgia, and could be what wins Democrats that state, is not going after white moderates, going after apathetic black voters, low-income voters who don't feel like they have been heard, rural white voters who also could be swayed. I mean, these are groups that are in play for Democrats. Yet still, I mean, how do you reckon that with 70 million voters who support Trump?
Yeah,
right?
I think that's my thing, is that I think in 2016, I think Democrats went so hard on the, and even like white senators, like I know Sherrod Brown was like, we need to get back on, the economic, populism. And it's like, it's not necessarily about that. Like, it's deeper. If you think that's what these voters are all, that's why they're supporting Trump, I think everyone's misguided, or there's a lack of realization behind what drives these people to vote for Trump. It's not the fact that, it's my 401k. A lot of people don't have 401ks. So there's something else that's bringing them in. And I think
white supremacy,
right?
White grievance politics.
Yeah, and I think that Democrats, and especially Democratic politicians, it's like they're trying to appeal to these like better angels, like not understanding that like black folk are catching hell. Like that's why they're like supporting this. And I think that there's a disconnect with the campaign, and I think how we see it, and I think that's a problem that I frankly don't think is going to go away, because I think white people always want to see themselves as better, even though everything else says that they're not.
And I'll say, watch the next, so after we get over this hump, which is like putting it super lightly, once we're in, I mean, okay, so let's say, January 2021, if we are indeed looking at a Biden White House and a Democrat held House, and like maybe a Democrat held Senate or a Republican held Senate, I think black voters now are in a position to really say, we delivered this for you from the beginning, since the primary, President Biden. Now you need to deliver for us. Here are our policy priorities. Here's what we want to see happen in the next 4 years, and how quickly can you start acting on this? And the response from Democratic leadership is going to be, I think, what gets us closer to the answer of whether or not Democrat strategy of trying to appeal to white moderates in addition to shoring up Black enthusiasm is one that can also yield meaningful like policy, or just like a meaningful change like in Black communities that are really, really, as you said, Noah and Henry, like we really need it. You know, this virus has killed 1 in every 1,000 Black Americans. I'm sure all of us know someone or have lost someone to it by now. The economic downturn as a result of the virus has hurt us the most. Mm-hmm. And even on top of that, we still find ourselves disproportionately impacted by mass incarceration, by joblessness before the pandemic hit, by housing discrimination, by healthcare discrimination before the pandemic hit. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we've just, I think, unfortunately, been really desensitized to it. But the good thing is we're in, you know, Black voters and Black politicians, well, Black voters and Black people are in a position to demand more, and Black politicians will have to do more than represent. They'll have to show and prove.
That's honestly my biggest fear.
I definitely agree. I do think it'll be a shift.
Wait, your biggest fear is what?
That they won't do that. I think there's a lot of evidence that says that even CBC members and just Democratic members of Congress are always skittish about actually going there for the fear of rebuke. And I think that this is going to say a lot, like when the House starts, are they going to do that HR 1 that includes like voting rights, or, you know, are those moderate members going to say, oh, this is too far left, when it's not too far left, it's just me getting rights for the first time. And I think that's.
Hold on, I think we cut Mackenzie off. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Mackenzie.
We did. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, honestly, I do think it'll be a shift, or I hope so. I hope people do really hold them accountable in some way, some capacity, because I do think this year, people just all over with 2020, people I just feel like are just fed up with constantly getting the short end of the stick, and just everything that's happened this year. I do feel like, I don't know, people are ready to like really hold politicians accountable. So I hope it's a shift, and I hope that they, you know, do what they can. I don't think it can be accomplished in 4 years. I really think, honestly, for presidency, I think at 8 years is really the most you can really do, honestly.
If you're progressive. So like, how do we as citizens, people, whatever, hold these people accountable? Because I think that's what a lot of young people struggle with. Okay, where do I fit in outside of talking on social media?
Well, as of now, we still live in a democracy. And so, you know, the cleanest answer to that question is vote them in or vote them out. And if they're not doing what you want, I mean, we do have an audience with all of our elected officials. We're supposed to have access to these people and to demand more of them to make the calls that we need. And if they don't listen, you know, protest and vote them out. I mean, that's like the cleanest answer. However, the reality, you know, we've done all of that, right? Yeah. Like we've tried that, we've employed those tools. So I think, you know, part of this has to also be like, what else do we have in our toolbox here? And I would say, look to the work that activists with the Movement for Black Lives are doing, not just through, you know, trying to hold national and federal elected officials accountable, but really making changes on the local level, trying to take care of members of their community. Local politics are arguably, you know, more important. Well, I won't say more important, but have a more direct impact on us. And I think we just have to keep thinking and planning. There's also a real crisis of imagination in this country. We've only learned how to work within the system. And if then this summer has really taught us that the system is not really working for us.
Right. And I would also
and we are like, what, 23, 24, 25-year-olds who stand to inherit all of this. I mean, you know, so we have to really we have to think too. I think as
the voting system needs to change first.
Right.
That's that part. I think that's what us as young people, we need to focus on how to get that electoral college dismantled, because
and I would also say it's
and term limits on the Supreme Court. But go ahead, Noah. My bad.
I was gonna say it's hard to focus on a problem that's not ours. I'm not racist to myself. White people need to do some work too.
But no, that's real though. That's real. That's real. That's real. That's real. Okay, but if not you, then who? If not now, then
and I think we don't need to say that anymore.
Save that for another day.
Yeah, we don't need. Yeah, that's too cliche. So
anywho, trying to take us to church today.
So Maya,
I'll be trying.
So we will be. Thank you, Maya, for joining us once again. We will be sure to follow all of your stories. I think I know your Twitter. It's Maya A. King.
Yes.
Okay, Maya A. King on Twitter. Be sure to follow all of her writing on Politico. She will be busy all year because 2020 is that kind of year. So be sure to follow us on social media on Twitter and Instagram at WRGO Pod. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at What's Really Going On. Like, listen, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And finally, be sure to check out our website, what'sreallygoingonpod.com. Maya, thanks again.
Thanks for having me, guys.